Right, biggest learning points from yesterday. Somebody shout something out. What did you get massive value from?
Routine.
Pardon?
Routine.
Yeah.
Comfortable with uncomfortable.
That is something that we're going to talk a lot about today. Getting uncomfortable with being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You just
Learning
have to do.
objectives.
Pardon?
Learning objectives.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of things we went through yesterday. Getting uncomfortable being comfortable, or the other way around, is probably the most important thing in business. You're going to have situations where landlords having a go at you, vendors having a go at you, tenants more than often than not having a go at you, because that happens all the time. And sometimes you just have to take it on the chin. And it's not nice. And we were talking about emotional intelligence yesterday. Empathy is understanding how they feel and seeing it from their point of view. The better you are at empathy, the better you are at handling complaints. Let's be honest, who has never had a complaint in their business? Ever. It happens. It's just part of life. It's part of being in business. You can't be successful in business, or you can't have a reasonably sized business, or certainly you can't employ staff and not have complaints. If you've got staff, complaints will happen because they are not an extension of you. And people will complain about you as a business owner because you're juggling that many balls, you've got wearing that many hats. All of a sudden you can't give the customer service or give the customer experience that person needs or desires. So social sort of empathy and the emotional intelligence is a massive, massive part of it. Anything that's learned objectives, I think that was a really good point. So learned objectives really tell the person on the procedure what they are about to learn. So when we wrote our procedures 6-7 years ago and really got into it, I took this idea from a vocational training company, so somebody that does like, you know, lower level degrees and NVQs and the like. And what Dave, a friend of mine, had told me, he said, if you have learning objectives on, it does two things. One, it keeps you focused on what the procedure is going to be about. So if it was on viewings, it would be staff will know how to carry out an effective viewing. Staff will know how to report feedback of a viewing. So if you read the procedure and one of those learning objectives are not answered, then you haven't written that procedure. So when you write your procedures, always start off with your learning objectives. It's also very good if somebody wants to know what the procedure is about. Yes, there's an argument to say the heading viewings should give a good indication what it's all about. But just by having those 3, 4, possibly 5 learning objectives, you'll have a better understanding of what you're going to learn. And again, if you're putting yourself out there and you're saying to the person who's about to read that procedure, this is what you're going to learn, and they don't learn it, then it gives you a good point to get some feedback and you can rewrite or update that procedure. Does that all make sense? Good. Anything else?
Structure. I really liked the structure of the profile and the skills matrix. That kind of seems so logical and obvious. I was embarrassed we didn't have it.
You're sorry?
It seems so logical and obvious. I was embarrassed that we don't have it.
Yeah, I'll say it again. Business is not difficult. You don't have to be Einstein or, you know, brain surgeon to be good at business. You've just got to have a logical thought process. You've just got to have structure in your business. In anything is structure. You know, so if Gemma, my partner, says to me, can you go and buy his ingredients at Asda and go make a cake? One, she'll have indigestion for a week if I made it, but the second thing is, if she didn't give me the list, I'll be a typical bloke, I'll be going to that aisle, then that aisle, then that aisle. There's no structure to it. But if I'm given a list, I'm not only going to get all the stuff there and do a good job, but I'm going to do it effectively and more efficiently. And it won't take me 2 hours and I won't be looking in the baked beans aisle or whatever it is. So structure in anything you do and everything you do is critical. You cannot have a business without a good quality business without structure. If you're property sourcing, you need structure. If you're an estate agent, you need structure. You know, letting agents more than anything need structure. As everyone knows, around about 200 laws and regulations in the property industry, most of them in the lettings. So if you haven't got structure, you're going to fall foul of them. Structure will prevent that. I've got a really good bit of advice when I first started in business, and it was no matter what business you're in, understand the law. Know what law you're in. Then you can't fall foul. The amount of times that our procedures and structure has stopped us being taken to court is, I can't count. It's that much. And it's just because we deal with, we've got a predominantly large LHA type sort of database, if you like. So we've got a lot of tenants who are emotionally charged, not being funny, they haven't got the sort of emotional intelligence or high intellect to understand where they've gone wrong. I'm not being disrespectful to them, you know, because that's where I'm from, that type of working class background, but it's true, isn't it? If anyone manages LHA tenants and they go in and they've got a big plasma on the wall, but they say, I haven't got enough money to pay my rent, and you're saying, what, you put Jeremy Kyle before your rent? Like, what's going on here? So that high level of emotional intelligence we as business owners and leaders need to. And it's difficult because sometimes we are wrong. Hard to believe, I know, but as business owners, sometimes we don't get it right. And what was really, really nice last night was listening to a lot of you last night saying, I haven't done it right with my staff. I need to invest more time. Me and Adam were talking last night, and it was great. I even said, I says, it's absolutely brilliant to hear, because Adam said, what are you going to do straight away? He says, there's one staff member I need to invest more time into. And that was just brilliant, because that, you're admitting it to yourself. When you come on these courses, it's very easy to get all the content, get supercharged up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then what happens on Monday? Bottle. You're back on Facebook, twisting about your stuff, saying you can't beat the 10 fee ban, blah, 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 and nothing happens. You need to take this content and implement it. What do you think is going to happen? Bear in mind what I've just mentioned, the tenant fee ban. What do you think is going to happen to your income when you start getting structure in your business? Yeah. So it's great decreasing your costs, increasing your prices, increasing the amount you sell. That's brilliant, right? But that costs money. Maybe not the decrease in the cost part. Why don't we just get a better business? Why don't we become more efficient, more effective? You'll probably find you don't actually need as many staff as you do. See, if you've got 5 staff, you might only need 4 staff. If you get the 4 staff performing really well, so immediately you've saved £20,000, £30,000 or whatever you pay. So structure is absolutely integral to efficiency, effectiveness, and it will make you more money, guarantee it. Absolute, 100%. Just have a look at your margins, your gross margin, gross profit margin, your net, and then just start putting the structure in and just watch them grow and grow and grow. You can't get more efficient and not make money. All make sense? Good. Anything else?
With the staff, now one thing and personally I'm with time management, so I now have to block out time in my diary on Monday to do any of this. But I'm just thinking about issues that I have with my staff and how to make them more productive. Is it on me to set a time plan for them? Is that stupid? Am I spoon feeding them too much? Is it a good idea? I don't know. I feel like it's something I should do.
Very good question. So it's almost after the horse has bolted, and we had a brief discussion last night about it. You put the structure in place first and foremost, then you set the expectations, then you manage those expectations, and if they can do it quicker, they will do it quicker themselves. So again, it's having all the procedures and the processes in place. And literally you need a procedure and a process for everything. We've got a procedure, how to write a procedure. I'm not kidding, we really have. We have a procedure about everything. List your procedures from the very first thing you do to the very last thing you do, and then you train your staff up on them. And remember, we write them, we train the staff on them, we audit them to make sure they're doing it right, correctly, we give feedback, and then we review it. Once they're doing it, once they're in that structure, then how quickly they do something is you can measure it. So I don't know, say it's a move in from start to finish, and it's just a normal move in. There's no anomalies. You can time it, an hour and a half, great. If all of a sudden they're starting to take 2 hours or 2.5 hours, you know that they can take an hour and a half. And this is where your one-to-ones come in and your skills matrix and your individual learning plans, because you can measure it then. At the minute you can't measure it because you've got no structure in your business. So they can turn around and say, well this happened and that happened and I didn't know what to do here and you've never told me I need to do this. If you've got the structure in the training, they can't say that. They will once, and then as Adele mentioned yesterday and showed you how, they'll never do it again. Because then you can say, well, you've got your learning plan, you signed it off, one-to-ones, this, that. They'll never try it again. And if they do, that's when you go on to performance management and you can get them out of the business. So maybe to start off with, you've got to spoon feed them until you get all the structure in place. But once you've got the structure in place, you shouldn't have to. If you're still spoon feeding somebody after you've taken them through the whole training program and you've started to develop them and they've had one-to-ones, and then you've got to take the decision, are they right for my business? There's nothing wrong with performance managing people that aren't right for your business. As I said yesterday, I have this sort of idea, it's either me or them. And that's why I don't feel bad when we've got to get rid of someone. Absolutely don't lose a wink of sleep over it. Just because if we've given them everything they need to do to be successful in the business and they are choosing not to, then that's their choice, not mine. Who finds it difficult performance managing people or sacking people? It's not nice, but you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It is a part of life. Nobody is, well, very, very few people in the same relationship now as what they were when they had the first boyfriend or girlfriend. Relationships move on, relationships change, businesses change, staff change. It's the circle of business life. It's going to happen. So don't feel bad about getting rid of somebody and letting them loose. You're actually doing them a favour. Because if you're not happy with them, do you think they're happy with working for you? Constantly getting a good rollicking, constantly being told it's not up to scratch, you've missed this off, you've done that. You're doing them a favour. You're actually putting them out of pasture. I think it's sort of merciful to get rid of them in some respect. It's the way I look at it. Anything else? What else was interesting on what you learned yesterday? Are you going to implement on Monday? Right.
One of the big things, obviously, it's been a bit of a revelation for me, is very much around the training aspect side of it and setting that time aside. Not only the importance of it, obviously how it helps the business, but also just how much people want that from a job.
Yeah.
And I like to action things as quickly as possible. So I had a telephone interview this morning with a candidate for a role that we're doing.
That is quick.
Yeah, and literally quarter to 9 this morning. And I literally asked what they were looking for from a job.
Yeah.
And the first thing they said was training and development.
Brilliant.
I was just like,
It just backs it up, doesn't it?
yeah.
I
Training,
think
development, security, and progression. They were the 3 top things.
Maslow's hierarchy of
That
needs.
was literally, exactly. And I was just like,
Yeah. It's really interesting to say that because I think we don't know what we don't know, and we think people are just after money, and we think people just want the big fancy cars and the recognition and the boss title or whatever. It's not that. It's absolutely not. How many people do you know, friends, family, loved ones, are working for someone on a really good wage, but they're really, really unhappy and they hate the job?
Yeah.
The city, I mean, you've worked that place, there's loads of people in the city.
All of them.
Yeah, they hate it. But they're on £500,000 a year bonuses, so
Can't
they're
go
doing it.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they feel they can't go anywhere.
Exactly. There was a guy we know, a friend of my business partner. We met him, a chap called Carl, and he works in the city. He just turned down £1 million salary with Morgan Stanley to start up on his own, and he's had to go raise funding because he said, "I'm not working for them guys anymore." So if you think money motivates somebody, there was a guy called Mayo, M-A-Y-O, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he came and suggested that people worked for money. He got absolutely ridiculed and laughed out of the sort of community because there was so many. He was at a time where people had to have money, they had to work because there was no NHS, there was no housing benefit, there was no welfare state. So that's why he said, "Oh, people want to work and they're doing it for the money. They're doing it because they don't live. You can't feed your family. That's why they're doing it. So they're putting that above what money is. Money is never motivated. It's what's called an enabler, and it's actually not money. You don't want. How many people have bought something and then either it's gathered dust or they've never used it? Yeah, all the time. All the time. I like watches. I can only wear one at any one time. The rest of it, I never wear them. But I feel as though I need to get a watch. I need to get another nice watch. And I get it, and it's like, put it in the drawer. And then my missus saying, that's another year we've got to wait for the new kitchen.
Sounds like my house.
Yeah, it is. So it's an enabler, and even then, do you know what makes people truly happy? Memories. Holidays, going away with loved ones. That's what you remember. It's not, going down and buying your first Breitling or Rolex or whatever. Nobody really remembers that. It's spending it with your loved ones. So that's why we work. We work to get money to enable us to build and make memories. Cool. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A session with Adele and I. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about what we learned yesterday. It could be anything to do with business. It would be ideal if it was some of the stuff yesterday. We're going to come on to a perfect one-to-one and performance management. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, we can do. We're also going to get some role players. We need 4 brave volunteers. Not quite yet. We'll come to that. And just to incentivise you, there's a nice bottle of champagne for the first 4 that put their hands up. Right. You two can't even look at a bottle shop. Did you end up with Canal Street last night? Right, any questions about anything what we learnt yesterday or anything to do with business, structure?
Staff.
I'll tell you what, I'll start off with one yesterday because I got asked a few times about we call them portfolio managers. So, and how they look after them, because I know the traditional way is having a property manager and a lettings negotiator. And somebody was saying, well, why do you have a portfolio manager and what do they look after? So we call them portfolio managers and in our lettings industry, in our lettings branches. And they manage anywhere between 100 and 150 houses each. And they manage it from the start of the process right through to the end of the process. And we do it for a couple of reasons. They don't do the viewings, by the way. We've got what we call accompanied viewers, so we've got the 6'8", 25 stone blokes wedged into a little bubble for you, and they're out doing that. And they just do it time and time out, time and time out. Again, if you look at the 10,000 hour rule, if you do something all the time, you're going to get better at it. So all they're doing is viewings, inspections, inventories. That's all they do, 24/7. Back in the office, we've got a branch manager who just manages the branch, doesn't look after any properties, and they are managing in the truest sense of the word. So they literally do the one-to-ones, the performance management, all the cool stuff that we spoke about yesterday and we're going to speak about today. So portfolio manager, 100 to 150 houses, and they look after it from the tenant application right through to eviction and everything in between. It's a little bit different. So you've got if you look at the old-fashioned way, so we call it the departmental way. So you've got someone there looking after arrears, somebody looking after repairs, somebody looking after evictions, applications. There's 3 people looking after one house. Imagine if I was the landlord and I had 2 or 3 houses and I need to speak to somebody about repairs, somebody about applications, somebody about evictions, and I've got something else with another house. There's 4 people I need to speak to. What are the chances then 4 people being waiting on the phone ready to put it down or put it through to the next person? It's not going to happen. And it's also very disjointed. So we have, as I said, what we call the hierarchical method, the portfolio manage. So you've got your arrears, repairs, evictions, and that one person looks after everything. The advantages of that, they get to know the property really well. So they get to know the landlord excellent, they know his first name, his last name, his kids' names, what his dog's called, everything. And we ask the portfolio managers to get pally with them. We say to them, if they're out walking the dog, oh, what's your dog called? Oh, Rover. Great. We put that on the note. It's got a dog called Rover, walks him every Wednesday morning, whatever it is. Because it's all about relationships. They do the same with the tenants as well. So they know the tenants' names, they know, don't go on a Friday afternoon because they go around with friends for a drink or whatever. They know as much as they possibly can about that person. What are the advantages of that?
Build a really good relationship.
Really good relationship. And especially in lettings, it's all about relationships. So you can imagine if the tenant's not paying some of the rent because there's a small little repair, and the landlord's not going to do the repair because they're not paying the arrears, you can be the middleman, the facilitator, and say, look, Mr. Landlord, get the repair done, I'll make sure they pay the rent. Or pay part of the rent, Mr. Tenant, I'll make sure the landlord does the repairs. Excuse me. So it's very, very good for that relationship building. Another advantage of doing it this way. Consistency, yeah. You're going to get the same day in, day out from that person. So that person is not doing, 10 different jobs. They are within their whole process, and on the surface, I agree. It does look as though chasing arrears, evictions, it does look a lot. But if you've got structure in place, that's not a lot. You're not asking somebody to operate on a brain, do a heart transplant, and put an aesthetic limb on. It's not that difficult managing a property, is it? If you follow simple rules well, simple process, this game is pretty damn easy. It's not difficult. Even when you're dealing with emotions, you have a tenant, I'm not paying my rent, great. What is the structure that he's not going to pay his rent, what do I then do? What's the procedure say? So lettings is very logical. And this way is logical.
How do you reward your portfolio managers, John? If, say, for instance, because they've got they've got a finite end, haven't they? So let's say that finite end is 125 properties. So how do you keep
Brilliant
them
question. I'll
incentivised?
hold it for the KPIs
Okay,
and the
mate.
bonus, but that's a very, very good question.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course you can.
They just moved over to Payprop this week. Do they action all of the rent that goes through as well individually on their own?
We've got an
properties?
accounts department
Got
that does that.
accounts.
But the accounts department, so all the property managers have access to Payprop, but the accounts department do it. I mean, 2,000 houses, Andrew's going to do it in probably a day a week, literally. When we first did it, Jason from Payprop, and we had 2,000 houses, and Jason were doing a Skype call. He's the one of the sales guys at Payprop, and he said to Andrea, "How long does it take you to do it at the moment?" And she said, "Well, I work 3 days a week, but it takes probably about 5 to 6 days." "How long will it take you to do it once this is up and implemented?" Jason said, "Probably about 60 to 90 seconds." And she, 2 seconds, and she said, "Should I start looking for another job?" And I went, no, we'll always have a job, don't worry about that, it's credit control. So yeah, we get the accounts to do it, but all the guys have access to it and they look at it every single day, 4, 5, 6 times a day, who's paid, who hasn't.
There's also only one face still to the landlord though, because the landlord never gets to see that there's an accounts department doing
Never.
that. So when we generate a statement, the statement doesn't go to the landlord, the statement goes to the portfolio manager. They check the statement over and then they'll forward it on to the to the landlord. And that way, if there's, what you're allowed to do is if, I don't know, a repair's gone on and it's gone on at the wrong value, the portfolio manager will know, oh, that wasn't meant to be on there, because errors happen, it's human error.
Yeah.
They'll be able to preempt it and say to landlord, you're about to get a statement, I've already notified our accounts department, there's actually a repair on there that shouldn't be on there, I'm in the process of raising your credit. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
If you're as proactive to that before it actually becomes a problem for them, making them aware of it. So again, it still gives that one point of contact. And that's one of the biggest frustrations my landlords had previously was, I speak to all these people, nobody really seems to know what the other person's doing. Nobody's looking after my one asset and understands my needs. And every landlord's slightly different in terms of what they want. Some want a lot of contact, some want, don't tell me all of those things, just do it. I'll approve repairs of 250 quid. I don't want to hear I've got a portfolio of 20 properties. Don't ring us with 20 different repairs. So I think by doing that, what we've done is we've listened to the customer and we've given them what they've wanted. And John's right in that the benefit in terms of the relationship that you've got, it's often a difficult job to do, and it's difficult in terms of giving bad news. Your tenant's left and absconded, we've got rent arrears, if you've got a relationship, it's so much easier to deliver a bad piece of news because they've got the trust in you, you can empathise, you know if he's been down this road before, so you're kind of saying, I know how frustrating it'll be, but you'll remember, we've been through this before and I've turned it around really quickly, we've got you another tenant in, I'm going to get the property cleared for you. Already you've got a relationship that's it's invaluable really, and the girls do a fantastic job of doing exactly the same with their tenants. One of our most difficult branches is our Easington branch, which is where John started, I guess, and they have, honestly, it is like an episode of Jeremy Kyle when you walk in there. It is, I don't know if people saw the benefit tenants, but there's 2 ladies walking and
She's called Anne the Man.
Anne the Man, pit bulls,
6'3", 20 stone,
skinhead,
tattoos on her neck.
tattoos all over her face and her
Onslaught.
head. But do you know what? They can be the best tenants also. And it's a difficult branch to work in. What the girls do there is a fantastic job, in that sometimes they come to us and nobody else will look after them because they failed reference because they're in receipt of benefits, and the reference them so tight in that you'll fail just because you're in receipt of benefits and they'll not be looked at. We don't do that. We understand that particularly in that area we do need to adjust and we do need to flex. But the girls are tremendous at gaining that relationship status with them from the off. Right, we're giving you an opportunity here, we are taking a little bit of a risk, we're going to manage that risk with, we've got a guarantor, which is the auntie or whoever. The auntie will come and sit down with the tenant. You're not going to let your aunt down, but you're not going to let me down either. The girls will get, I mean, these people are actually on the bones of their bones, but they will come in with a bunch of flowers, a box of chocolates. they will come in with a top up because they don't want to let that member of staff down, because they see it is they've built a relationship with them,
Yeah.
and I don't want to let you down. Hiker, I'm about to go to the pub and I'm about to blow about 60 quid, so I've come in here when we top up this week. I hear this kind of thing and think, you can't, if you can't buy that. That's
It's
relationship.
all about the relationships in a
Fantastic.
business, no matter what. And do you know what? We're probably forced down this route when we first started
Yeah.
because of the type of properties that we managed, which was a great thing, because I think we were saying that at lunch dinner last night. If you can manage LHA tenants, you can manage any. I could probably manage Brexit better than what's been managed, just because of my ex-problem from it. Definitely
No
could.
doubt about it.
So, Juncker may discuss. So yeah, that's only because of the relationship that they've got with our tenants. It's a people business. As soon as you start being a faceless corporation, do you know what the downfall of LSL is? It's got nothing to do with the shareholders. It's the lost that emotional connection with the people. That's 100% down to it. 100%. Purple Bricks, why did they fail? Oh, sorry, eMove. It's because of that emotional connection. When you start putting money, or lack of money, cheapness is a main drive to do business with somebody, you're gone, you're done. You've got to get that emotional connection. You've got to get people to want to work with you. Another advantage of this is if they leave.
Yeah, collective knowledge.
Yeah.
Collective knowledge. So we've got somebody else who does that job. They just fit into the breach. They go into the gap.
Holiday cover, sickness.
Holiday cover, everything. Now imagine going on this one. If the arrears person went on holiday, do you think the eviction specialists want to go do all the arrears? Or do you think they're going to not want to do their job 90% of the time for 10% on there? Or do you think the repairs is going to want to start doing evictions? It's a difficult, thankless task to do that. But again, you've got somebody at this side and somebody at that side. All they do is they just step in and start managing that property. And they don't need to know the property, do they? They just need to know what? The process. And they know the process just because they're doing it on a day-to-day basis. Sorry, Zoe.
Can I just ask what size office are we talking about here? Because I think my office would not be able to facilitate this sort of...
Anywhere from 60 houses up to 600.
I don't think it would work.
Well, it is.
No, I know
No, I'm
it's
joking,
for you,
I'm joking.
You know, I know it's for you, but
So
I just
why would it not work for you?
Because you just said, say, I think my portfolio would 1.5 portfolio managers. So, you know, and that's at a push. Because I'm not a big office. So if somebody leaves, there's nobody, is there?
Oh, there's a tipping point. Like, so we've got Holly's branch has got about 60, 70 properties under management. Not a huge lot. It's more of a sales branch. We've got Grace in there. That's one person. When she goes on holiday, it's very difficult. But what we do is we pull somebody from another branch who knows that.
It's the scale.
That's fine, and
Yeah.
it's not right for you at the moment.
Yeah.
Once you grow, and you will, then this is where it is. The only difficult thing is, once you get to a certain tipping point, it's a little bit more difficult, it's a bit more pain to swap across to
At
this.
what point would you put a branch manager into the branch then? Is the-
Day one.
So even with a small portfolio, you'd have a branch manager?
Holly's our branch manager, yeah, and Tony manages Hegarty's. Day one.
They also they're also responsible for business development, growth and valuations also. So they will do that. So
they are growing the business organically. Then we've got our prospect, and we do a lot of Facebook with Paul, cold calling, a lot
they
of
won't
letters and
just manage
leaflets.
staff, so you don't necessarily need, you could look at why do I need a manager to manage one staff member. They've got a keen eye on the growth.
The
thing.
business
Yeah,
manager,
it's-
that's
yeah.
the thing.
And that's a really good point, that if you've only got like sort of a lower level portfolio manager in there and no one keeping them and holding them to account on allowing them to take ownership, what do you think is going to happen? Can you remember when your boss went out the door when you worked for somebody else? What did you do? You didn't all of a sudden start to work harder. I started playing solitaire, whatever. So you need that business manager in there to set the targets, make sure they hit them, drive that business forward from day one. In fact, we were recruiting for our Spennymoor branch. The first advert we put out was a branch manager. I haven't even recruited for a lens negotiator yet, or a portfolio manager we call them. Which is quite ironic, because not many people know what a portfolio manager is, so when we recruit, we've got to call it a lens negotiator.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of kick in the teeth. And then we explain, it's actually not a lens negotiator, it's a portfolio manager, but it's the same thing really.
I think the term manager scares people sometimes, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
we tend to call it sales and lettings neg, but in essence. That's
It's,
what they
it's,
are.
it's portfolio management. What?
Sorry, you're lettings next, so they go out and do the viewings as well?
No.
No, company
That's what a
viewer.
lettings next does though, isn't it?
You're sorry?
A lettings next goes out and does the
Wouldn't know,
viewings.
I've never had one.
Tell them.
We don't have them, so we've
So
got
who
a,
does the viewings then?
a company viewer. So we've got somebody in a company viewer. Remember I said at the beginning,
I think
we've got.
I think you were out. You just
Oh,
you
oh, you
missed
were
that little
late,
bit.
Tony. So, so we've got somebody called a company viewer, one per branch or on the bigger branches too, that literally just go on the feet and they just do the viewings, the inspections, the midterms, sometimes door knocks, hand delivering section 21s, whatever it is, and they're just in and out, just in and out. So I'm just going to come to you.
How do you incentivize this portfolio management?
I'm going to come back to that because Alan asked the same question. It's a really good question. So in the next session, I'm going to talk about KPIs and bonus.
Then what about their working hours?
It's 9 to 5. But we recruit them based on culture and if they just work till the job gets done. Mostly it's 9 to 5 because if you all of a sudden, you've got to be quite wary if people are starting to work till 5:30, 6 o'clock every single night, then they're busting at the seams. The only asset you should never sweat in a business is your staff. So we always have them working about 90-95%. Tony's case probably is about 60%. But you never have them busting at the seams, just in case they need to leave and everybody else can't step in to help. So probably about 90-95% of their maximum capacity.
How do you deal with like incoming calls? And do you have kind of like a receptionist position who fields the calls out?
We've got an apprentice, but everybody has the calls. We've got big wall boards up with sort of call centre capability. So it's how many calls have come in, how many are missed. Where we are, there's quite a lot of call centres, so we have a lot of call centre staff. So they totally get it, boom, to pick up that
How
phone.
many staff do you have doing? Do you just have like one per branch doing that, or
Everybody picks up the phones,
right?
but we've
so
got
it's
an
just-
apprentice per branch, and they just filter the calls, field the calls. But the more procedure you get, the less calls you get. So what is the only need you should have for people phoning you is, can I make a viewing? And hello, I'm a landlord, do you want to take me 100 properties off me? That's the only reason you should have calls. It shouldn't be chasing arrears or whatever, it shouldn't be like that. So the more systemised you get, your calls really dip. We found that. Tom?
So I'm interested in what you're saying about the company viewer because we're considering taking on an accompanied viewer and then getting them to do our inventories as well.
Yes.
But thinking about yesterday, obviously people are driven by achieving targets,
Yeah.
progression, etc. Where is that in that accompanied viewer's role?
So we just set them goals. So again, we say you've got to do X amount of viewings, X amount of inventories.
Okay.
So once they hit that inventory, they get a little bonus.
But how do they control how many viewings and inventories they're doing? Isn't that driven by
How
the staff within
by
the
how
branch?
efficient they are.
Okay.
So again, it's by how efficient they are. So in the morning they get the list of what they've got to do. They've got to phone them, make sure they're in. If they don't do that, then obviously they're not going to get in. So yeah, we go for the older people as well. So people who aren't as driven. Well, one, they're more reliable. Sorry, everybody under the age of 30, but they are. They turn up. They're very, very sort of care about their appearance and stuff, and they're a very good ambassador of the company. We have had the younger ones, and it's just our experience. They don't care as much,
And we do
and they get a
ask
lot
them-
more speeding tickets.
We do ask them to work off their own initiative as well. So some of the things I'll focus them on with the company viewers is thinking about, they know the properties inside out because they'll tend to go more frequently than anybody else does. So I'll say, think about when you're seeing a property, think about something that's very, very similar. So think about if you've got a viewing in for 1 Bourne Street and actually to 2 up, 2 down, similar kind of garden spaces, would they want to see something kind of 100 yards away that's very similar? Take the keys with you and show them that one, allow a little bit of a contingency within your diary to say, I could shoot you down to this one as well. So you can ask them to work off their own initiative again, which is something that, and we have had accompanied viewers that have turned into portfolio managers. So in terms of progression, yes, it's either a role, and we've had the same accompanied viewer for years and years and years, and he absolutely loved to turn up in his suit every day, would never have a day off, was absolutely fantastic, and he knew he kind of should have been retired at that point, but he didn't want to be. So for him, the role was perfect. He wanted to be told where he was going, when he was going. He liked to work off his own initiative and kind of show them other things, and he treated it very much as something that he was, quite precious about. But at the same time, we've had accompanied viewers whereby they've done stuff and come back in the branch and then said, could I start giving a little bit of vendor feedback if I've got a little bit of time in my diary? Yeah, why not? You know, so, and we'll allow them that growth, and then sometimes they'll look at spend a bit more time in the office and say, I wouldn't really try in that role. So there is progression routes, just not necessarily within that role, but there's progression routes.
We've also had somebody very recently who left us because he didn't think there was progression. There was, he just actually wasn't suitable, and we told him that. He's gone to another company to do a portfolio manager role, and he didn't like it, and he's actually come back to us saying, do you know what guys, you were right, I'm not cut out for that, can I come back to my old job? We didn't, because we'd filled it.
You get a lot of people, Tom, who, as you said before earlier, the motivation is the job,
Yeah.
right? So they're not looking for you to make them sales manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got a full-time sales manager who's divorced, who's finding himself a bit loose ends Saturdays
Yeah.
and Sundays, and he does every Saturday for us.
Yeah.
And it is brilliant. It's absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant.
it's part-time,
But
works
he-
quite well as well.
Yes.
We
And
have
loads of
three,
part-time.
like, covering the week on different days, so they're happy to just come in, do their couple of days, get the money, have the sort of social interaction, and like you said, all of them are over
They're all
45.
magistrate, ex-postmistress, and
We
a
had-
sales
Perfect.
manager.
We had a guy, Gary Rasmussen, he's retired actually, he was with us for 6-7 years. He was a manager of 4 big macro stores up in the northeast of England, and he just wanted he's a West Ham fan, so you can't have it all, but apart from that he's a decent fella. But he just wanted just to do just a normal 9-to-5 job. By God, he was the best company viewer we ever
Barry
had.
doesn't want to
He
do
was
anything other than
unbelievable.
Saturdays.
He was suited and booted all the time, very, very articulate. He could have really tough conversations with people who had arrears, but he could also talk to landlords with big portfolios. And the amount of people that came in went, he's a diamond in.
Yeah. I think that actually the vast majority of our accompanied viewers are probably in a position where they don't need to work.
Yeah.
They choose that particular role because
Definitely.
it gives them a certain lifestyle, and it gives them, or it's mums who need a bit of flexibility, but you know, are really kind of consistent and so on. So it's actually never a difficult role to fill. I never worry if I have to fill an accompanied viewer role, but I very rarely have to do it because it's a role that people stay in, but they're motivated probably in a slightly different way. When we talked about recruitment, again, that's something when you're looking at recruitment, are you going to ask one of the things that you're going to want is a go-getter? Probably not, but it's one of the things that you're going to want is to see some consistency from somebody. So again, it's how you pitch the advert, how you pitch the interview. So it's just thinking about what kind of characteristics they're not going to need from this person.
One more.
I was just going to say we've got 3 part-timers who cover the 7 days, Tom, that were open. But then now we've turned it into a USP. One of the few companies that will do a company view 7 days a week.
That's one of the things that I'm thinking about is if we could actually do it on Sundays. None of our staff want to work Sundays.
Go for it, Tom. You get some
It
work.
also goes back to what Zoe was saying. If you've got 1.5, you need 1.5 FTEs, 2 or 3 part-timers. That's the best way to do it, because then you have got holiday cover and you have got flexibility.
Zoe's at that real tipping point at the minute where she needs 2 people. Once you get to 2 people, Zoe, then this would absolutely work for you. But I totally get it.
I've got 2 and an office manager now, but one's a let an egg, sales, he likes to prospect, and
Yeah.
the other one's the sort of tenancy
Property
administrator
manager.
side. Yeah, so it's, if I went to the neg now and said, listen pal, you're going to have to do inventories, he's going to walk.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with it,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. We'll have a chat, and if you want to have a little discussion, we can talk later.
John's portfolio managers don't do inventories though,
No,
Zoe.
don't do any out of office. It
Ours
doesn't
don't.
work.
No, she's thinking about lettings then, because the
What
company
I've got
viewer
now,
eyes it.
what I've got now, how to adapt that is
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah.
So, and he's great, I don't want to have to get rid of him.
No.
Something else that this is really good for, scalability.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say, if we could buy a portfolio, we could open another office, we would probably want to do that. Fair to say? So now you know that, right, I'm going to acquire Adam's portfolio, he's got a branch, 300 people, and in my head I'm going, that's a 3-person branch that. He's got 5 staff, great, immediately I'm saving 2 wages. So from that perspective, it's very scalable. A landlord comes to you and say, I've got 200 properties, I want you to manage it, wouldn't that be a great thing? Now you know you just need 2 more staff.
Yeah.
So we had, it was a bit of an opportunity. So a landlord came to us, he had 370 units in Sunderland. It didn't come off, we couldn't agree on it. But he came to us and he said, how much would you charge for that? Literally had the numbers on the back of a 5-pack in 5 minutes, because I knew exactly it was a 3-person operation. Simple.
Who negotiates the deal? So say your company viewer goes out and the person says, I want to take it. Who then goes back to the landlord?
The portfolio manager does.
Right, okay.
Everything is to do with the portfolio.
Yeah.
The landlord doesn't speak to the company viewer or the branch manager.
Right, okay.
Unless there's a
Yeah.
complaint or he
Yeah.
wants to. But the portfolio manager looks at everything start to finish.
I'm just thinking like my lettings negs would definitely be more in the accompanied viewers position, and I think my property manager would definitely like the role of like portfolio manager. But then I'm thinking, well, I've got a lettings manager, and if I turned around and said to him, right now you're going to be like the head portfolio manager or whatever, he'd be like, oh, I fucking hate doing repairs and maintenance and arrears chasing. So it just, you need a different type of person, someone who's good at doing lots of things rather than someone just good at negging the deal.
You'd be surprised that you don't need, so this is what the whole point of having structure and procedures is, you don't need somebody who's good at negging a deal. You don't recruit on capability and competency, you recruit on values. Because if they want to learn and they want to be better, like our values are, then they'll learn this stuff. This is not difficult, it really isn't.
No, it's about being organised, isn't it?
Yes.
So absolutely, and some of you might have a few difficult decisions to make to say, right, I like it. And by the way, guys, don't take what I'm talking about and say it won't fit in my business because of Fred, Sarah and Joe. Look at it and say, I like that, it'll fit in my business, can I train them to fit there? Because I'm sorry guys, your business has to come first.
I don't know if you've been enough.
Pardon?
Performance
match, Tony, performance match.
Right at the business.
I don't do lessons, I'm only sales and I'm only small, but I have done something similar where before I had somebody doing the sales progression and the person who was doing the valuations had to do the viewings because I'm small, I think like Zoe, but I have just gone down the route of changing mine over so that the two girls who were there full time in the office, I've split all my vendors between the two and they have to deal with applicants coming in and the vendor contacts the office, so it's exactly the same thing. But how many vendors per neg would you expect them to be able to deal with?
Totally depends.
100, 150.
That's a lot higher than what we would, but it's going to be area dependent.
We use that model in sales.
Yeah.
You don't go to 150 on sales, between 80 and 100 per neg on sales.
Yeah,
100 to
But they do their own sales
sales.
progressions. They do their own
so
sales
100
progressions.
to 150 on rentals.
100 to 150 on rentals.
We've got
full-time member of staff.
We've got one girl in our Hartlepool branch, Lizzie, who is an absolute.
She's not human.
She's not human. She manages what 180.
Yeah.
180
And she did
and with
up
time to
until
spare.
just last week.
She
She
wants
did
to
all
move
of
to
our
Wigan.
pay prop as well.
You what?
She wants to move to Wigan.
Oh, she's unreal. She's
No,
absolutely.
I'll fight you for her.
Who does all the admin stuff? Like renewals letters, drawing up contracts. They do that as well.
Yeah.
Go around and tell my girl on Monday you can do this. I'm like, oh.
Well, that's
do it all the time, hey.
That's the thing. You don't know what you don't know, and it's
Yeah.
only because you put this system in place, you'll become more efficient. The blames culture. Here's another thing.
Yeah, you're trying to eradicate that.
You eradicate the blames culture because we'll call that one Joe. So Joe's responsible for that property start to finish. If anything happens to that property, what can Joe say other than it was me?
Yeah.
But if you did that one, the other one, why didn't you chase the arrears? I did chase the arrears, but the repairs weren't done. And the repairs weren't done because you got an eviction letter, so I couldn't chase the arrears because you wouldn't pay us. With this one, it's Joe's fault start to finish. And again, when you implement something, a structure like this, you will get a lot of people pushing back. The ones that push back are the ones aren't going to make it. When we did Investors in People 6 years ago now, we got told that you might lose around about 5 to 7% of your staff. We lost 20 in the first year. We had 30 odd staff, so it's only like 7 people, but we lost them because they were the ones that were pushing back. So they want to say, what we're going to do one-to-ones and what plan feedback, do review, and we don't want that rubbish, and communication, hierarchies and we don't want that. Why don't you want that? Because you're not doing your job and you're going to get found out. That's why you don't want it. And every single person that left, at the time you're devastated because it's like staff leaving left, right in Chelsea and you think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Within 6 months of them leaving, we were like, thank they've left. Like they just were not a good fit for our company and certainly our culture. Funny enough, the two that left were the two that I got in the room and said, discuss. Coincidental, that, isn't it? It's funny.
Don't you think you always feel like when someone leaves there, you either feel really, really mopey for a bit and then it takes time, or you just think straight away, thank fuck for that.
Yeah. Well, we did, when the girls got the notice in yesterday, it was a case of brilliant. Performance management works.
Yeah.
Holly had to stop me sending an email to a rival who took one of our dead ones, thanking him.
Let's not start that.
Good luck.
Yeah. You might think, reverse psychology, why is Alan thanking me? I'm not going to take her on.
Brilliant, mate.
But this system really does work. Might not work for you right now, like with Zoe, and I totally get that. But when you think about it, scalability, accountability, and you're more efficient, more effective.
Can I just ask, have you ever been a victim of your own success? If a portfolio manager's got on so well with their landlords and then left, have their landlords walked with them?
Once. And it was that. Did anyone see us on Britain's Benefit Tenants? Bev, who was on it, who was sort of the branch manager of Easerton, started to believe her own hype on TV and stuff. Very sad. Started going down the bingo and getting drinks bought for her and all that sort of stuff. True story. And her and another employee went and set up a lettings company. What was it called?
Shit.com.
Shit.com. Shit.com. And they
Not here then.
and she took around about 20 landlords with her. Sorry, 20 properties with about 9 landlords. She was going to try and take a lot more, probably about 30 to 40 properties. But once we spoke to them, we said, you do know the reason you get on with Bev has got nothing to do with Bev. It's got everything to do with the procedures and the system. They said, you know what, actually I can say that. She tried to take them all. She tried to take about 100. And thankfully, Ian said, no, it's you that we like, it's the company that we like.
You have to hop on that very quickly though, you have to be aware of it and you have to start speaking to people and have those nurturing types of conversations. The people that did leave to go with that, in fairness, were very much driven by cheapness.
Yeah.
So, and because she kind
Nice
of
to
was
get rid
so
of them anyway.
focused on, I want to take their business off them, she just would
5%.
go whatever. And my conversation with them is, have you ever asked yourself, if she's so confident in her ability, have you ever asked why she's pitching herself at 5%, 100 quid per lead? You'd ask yourself that question.
That's what she was
I'm not
trying.
fighting to keep your business and willing to reduce, but that tells me I'm confident in what we're able to supply.
So we were charging double and sometimes quadruple and quintuple on the tenant fine fees, and she could only take 20 properties.
So do you call these people, or do you email them, or go on
Phone.
Phone them. Got to do.
Do it
Yeah.
never ever. A letter is the coward's way out, in my opinion.
And
Phone them and offer them in, ask them to come in for a
Yeah, I
cup of
was
tea.
going to say, people with big portfolios, we often say, so why don't we get together and have a cuppa? You'll be amazed at how far that actually goes,
Yeah.
particularly disgruntled landlord. First thing I say is, why don't we, how can we meet face to face? Let's do that. I think they expect you to shy away from confrontation. As soon as you don't, actually, you gain a bit of respect instantly from that.
Yeah. It's all about the levels of communication. Is how many of us have taken on? How many of us take on properties via text? Not many. How many take on via letter? Not many. How many take on via phone calls? A few. But I bet the vast majority of us take on properties by meeting the landlord or the vendor.
face to face?
Face to face. Because you can look someone in the eye, body language and tonality is a big thing. So why just a letter? You've got to be some wordsmith to make a letter sound really cool, haven't you? It's very difficult to make it come across.
Yeah.
You are JP.
I'm not allowed to send emails for the reasons we found out yesterday. So I'm well away from that.
You get the target pad sent back.
Yeah. So it's very important that if you do have something like that, you've got to absolutely jump on it. But you've got to look at also, you've got to weigh up. So right, we lost 20 houses. In 10 years we lost 20 houses. How many houses have we gained, relationships made, businesses bought, acquired by having this structure?
The point is, because this is one of the reasons that I've done it, was if you then get complaints about one versus the other, you know who is doing a better job than
Absolutely.
the other. So it's another way of getting the feedback.
Tell you what else we do.
Yeah.
It builds competition.
Yeah, that's right.
Massive
That's what I'm
competition.
trying to do.
I'll tell you something else we do. Get a complaint, swap it to the other neg.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
So from a competition point of view, so say one of our larger branches have four portfolio managers in. You know who's the best portfolio manager because they've got the lowest arrears, the lowest complaints, the highest let rates. Everybody knows who they are. It's not difficult. What are the other three going to be like? Chomping at the heels of that person in this competition, especially when we do talk about KPIs and bonus. We also have like an employee of the month. So for example, if Lizzie wins it for being an absolute Terminator robot down at Hartlepool, we make sure everybody knows about it. Why is Lizzie won it? Well, because she's done this and this. Right, well, I'm going to do that. So you're building up, even if it's, don't get me wrong, you're not going to have another 20-odd portfolio managers going absolutely mental, turning into little terminators, but you're going to get a couple of them, and it's going to be those little incremental marginal gains, 1%, your 0.5%, your 2%, your 1%, that's going to make you a better.
And everything we've given you so far, and certainly what we'll be discussing today, is tools to measure. If you think about it, that's all you're doing is measuring. You're measuring performance, you're measuring ability, you're measuring everything. And another measuring indicator is if you have 2 portfolio managers, I'm sometimes met with, I can't manage the properties that I've got like 100 properties, and then I go, right, okay, we need to look at that then. Kaylee's got 130, what do you think Kaylee's doing differently to you? It's very, very hard when you ask those type of questions for them to kind of go. What it also does is as well, I've had this where I've had a portfolio manager take over from another portfolio manager if they've moved, but like we've moved them to be branch manager, some of them progress that way. And then that new portfolio manager sits and I start to say, damn, I'm just not getting as much residual income in, or the renewals aren't there and people don't want to pay for the midterms. Right, we've got the same portfolio as Sophie managed, correct? Yeah. So how was she doing it? And I'll produce her stats. Right, okay, yeah. Have you lost any landlords? No. Right, so you just need to have a different type of conversation. So what does that look like? Let's do some coaching around how you have different types of conversations. So it's all very, very measurable.
Yeah, and that's
which makes your job easy.
And that's the main point of this. You have the structure and you can measure performance and you can drive them forward. Is that useful, guys? Tony?
The sales side.
Sorry?
The sales side, how's that structured?
So it's pretty much exactly the same. So the sales negotiator does exactly the same, takes the offers, negs it, progresses it. It's actually a lot easier. We have a lot, Alan was saying there's about 80 properties you've got.
80 to 100 for each.
I think we're up to 50 or 60, but we're a bit less. It works very well, so if we've got a complaint about that person, you just look at whose portfolio it is. So it's quite easy to work out.
Just split your vendors, basically.
Yeah, that's all it is. 100 vendors, split them down the middle. That one, that one, that one, that one.
Difference being portfolio managers can look after their landlord for 10 years. It is generally you're starting an end date with your vendors, so you're replenishing all the time.
So you have a complete view for your sales?
Yes. Yeah. It's a very simple but effective way of working. It's very, very simple.
And as you grow and as it becomes scalable, very rarely, if somebody meets me with a manager's leaving or a portfolio manager's leaving, what it allows us to do is go, right, okay, I don't ever think of that. When we decide, do we need to recruit? I'll often look at that and I'll go, well, hang on, we lost 20 properties the other day. Could I divide up that portfolio because we've just taken on a PM who's only at about 60 at the minute and we'll grow her. Actually, I might not need to replace that because she's developed so much so now I can give her 40 and actually I can divide the other lot up. So often I'll say to John, we don't need to recruit, do we not? And I go, no, I've made it work, it's fine, don't worry about it. We probably will in 6 months' time if we go at this capacity. Same with managers, I don't ever like losing any members of staff, certainly not a manager because they're the driving force, there should be a driving force within the branch. But then I look at my other team of managers and go, temporarily, you could spend a day in the branch, you could spend, the focus when you're in needs to be on development, the focus when you're in needs to be on growth, the focus when you're in needs to be on this. So it just means that when I'm looking at things, I can kind of, switch people around.
Last question, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just sort of thinking about how it would work on a sales side. I can see the portfolio manager role working because although they're different, it's transferable skills, but do you not find that there's an issue with sales progression is almost more of a systematic and organised rather than a sales side? Alan shaking his head.
No, it's exactly the same. So if you've got the process, if you've got the hardest part about that is negotiating the deal, negotiating the deal.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody with a semblance of structure, organisation, they can phone a solicitor twice a week. They can deal with any inquiries or any issues because guess what? You've got your systems and your procedures to do it.
Especially if they know until that deal gets done, they ain't getting paid.
They're not getting paid, they don't get the bonus. Right guys, just going to hold it there for a second. Adele's going to do a bit of sort of Q&A on the staff and stuff.
Like that.
Also we're going to do the role plays. Do you want to jump into the role plays?
Yeah.
Right. So we've got 4 bottles of champagne. First 4 that want to come up. Alan's already told me last night actually. Who wants to do it? Who wants a bottle of champagne? Right, so there's 1, 2, 3. One more we need. Zoe, that's it, great. I'll tell you what, we'll just go in this order. So if Alan wants, do you want to just come up here with Adele?